Oliveira, Oliveira Lawyers. Today is Wednesday, December the 18th. I apologize. We are starting way late. It's like about 30 minutes past our scheduled time. It's end of the year and we are super busy here at the firm. I hope you understand. But for those of you who are around, as usual, we're gonna be discussing topics of your interest. If you have specific questions, I can answer any questions that are not strictly legal. We are unable to provide free advisory as per the rules of the Brazilian Bar Association. But I can expand on the topics of your interest, meaning if I'm unable to answer the questions directly, I can certainly discuss about the topics and help you with an overall understanding of the topic. All right, and in the meantime, while we wait for our friends to show up, I wanna call attention to the holidays, to the incoming holidays. We're gonna have Christmas. We're gonna have a Christmas next week, right? And therefore, we're not gonna have the next two live streams. You're not gonna have a live stream on Sunday, the 22nd. We're not gonna have a live stream on the 25th. But we are back here on December the 29th, which is the following Sunday. And I have someone over here. Paige, how are you? Last time we spoke, you were celebrating birthday. How's everything with you, Paige? Where are you in your journey? To Brazil? I know you're still in the planning stage, right, Paige? Let us know how things are going. In the meantime, let's see if there are any news from Brazil that you would like to have discussed. The main news, I would say, as I can tell, from looking at the Wall, as you probably know, is one of the main news portals in Brazil. And as you can see over here, in the top of the portal, you're going to see the dollar, the currency exchange between dollar and Brazilian real. That's an all-time record. Since the Brazilian currency was created, that's an absolute record, and it's difficult to believe. Many people, they were doubting that the Brazilian real would, that the US dollar would buy more than 6 Brazilian reais. But as you can see over here, a US dollar is buying almost 6.2 Brazilian reais. And not surprisingly, we have a huge uptick in people considering purchasing properties in Brazil, right? So that's probably the biggest news we have. Another thing we have going on is something that you was seen in the United States. The whole discussion if President Bolsonaro was trying, to overcome democracy in Brazil. And now they're saying they have, new evidence because former President Bolsonaro was discussing about, how to kind of seize powers, right, because of his dispute with the Brazilian Supreme Court, right? So these are the two main news in Brazil. We have here a comment from Paige. I honestly don't have a plan at the moment. Every time I adjust my plans, it seems like something messes up those plans. I'm really not sure how to go about getting there. I feel so lost. Paige, right? So that's an interesting point, and this is somewhat somewhat repetitive in terms of what we see among some of our clients, and maybe it is because some of our clients, they want to have everything, every single detail figured out, okay, and many times it is just too difficult to achieve that. So my recommendation is that like you try Brazil without too much planning. Like people shouldn't be trying to move to Brazil at once. I guess I think it's more like a process. So if you keep an eye at the airfares, you're gonna realize there is a huge variation in prices, and there is nothing precluding you from eventually seizing the opportunity of spending like a couple of weeks in Brazil. Okay, like particularly if you're not going like to the most famous locations. There are so many deals out there, for you to find a nice place to stay, a good city, a good part of Brazil to enjoy. And if you also find, like an affordable airfare, that could be something that you could handle on a short notice, right? Like, of course, it also depends on your specifics, like, if you have like a 9 to 5 job. But what I'm saying over here is that, find like the time and the energy required to arrange something more long term. All right, Paige, I hope that makes sense. We have Sylvan O'Connor, and welcome here, Sylvan. Is there any way of purchasing a house without having a visa? I have applied for my son. He's Brazilian, but it's taking so long. Sylvan, so are you from which country? Let me know which country, because nowadays many countries, they don't need a visa, right? Like nationalities or nationals from many countries, they don't need a visa to come to Brazil. Just as an example, right? Like a traditional example is going to be like in the United States, Australia, and Canada. So if you are from one of those countries, and there are many other countries as well, like the UK, Portugal, many European countries, or most of the European Union, you wouldn't need even a visa to come to Brazil, okay? And to buy a property, as long as it is an urban property, you don't need a visa at all, okay? You don't need a visa to buy property in Brazil. There are other documents you may need in many states. Like if you're single, you're gonna need an apostilled birth certificate. If you're married, you may need an apostilled marriage certificate. Of course, you need your passport, but there is no need for a visa, right? Like a registry in Brazil is gonna check if you have a visa or not for you to buy a property. What we see happening, however, is that some registries, they want to make sure that you are legally, that you are in a valid stay while you're in the country, okay? But no need for a visa whatsoever. Now, if your son is Brazilian, yes, you could get a visa. You could get a actually even like a residency for you to stay on a more longer-term basis in Brazil, all right? It looks like we have some type of connection issues going on. Let me see if the internet gets better. I'm not sure if you guys can see. I'm not sure if you guys can see our live stream, but yes, it looks like we're back. It looks like we're back. I apologize for the issue. We have here Paige is reminding me, right? My 7 pets are stopping me. I have no one to watch them while I'm here without spending $13,000 to board them at a facility. Right. Okay. Well, it looks like our live stream is messed up. All right. Okay, you guys can hear me and you guys can see me, right? That's great. All right, so I was just reading here Paige's comment. Yes, Paige, now I remember. Yeah, that's a tough call. So I guess, $13,000 is a tough call, right? Like, I mean, if you could have maybe, I'm not sure if a friend would be willing to watch your 7 pets, but I get it, Paige. Now I understand. And if you consider a more, long term, eventually the good thing about cats is that they are small, right? If they are cats or if they're dogs, like for small size, usually it's not so difficult to bring it then to Brazil. Shilvan is saying, I'm from London. I emailed you. My first name is Carla. All right, Carla. Yes, good for you. Yeah, so from London, the UK, there is no need for a visa. Okay, so just letting you know, you can basically buy a property without any visas, and even interesting enough, right? Something that's more unusual, but is still very telling of how buying properties in Brazil work. Like some people, they don't have a visa, right? Like let's say they come from the Middle East, or like from a country in which you do need a visa, but the person tries to get a visa and they are denied a visa. Maybe because their income is not like consistent for some reason that the consulate doesn't give this person a visitor visa. This person could potentially buy a property from abroad, meaning without even foot in Brazil. If this person buys a qualifying property in Brazil, they could apply for the real estate investment visa. And if approved, then the approval is actually started in Brazil, not at the consulate. And if we are able to get the approval in Brazil, then we send the paperwork to the consulate, and the consulate would basically, or most probably, have to abide by the Brazilian government decision and give this person like the real estate investment visa, right? So in those cases, in those rare cases, the applicant would buy a property without even traveling to Brazil, all right? So that's the whole point. Like, they cannot come to Brazil, so they buy a property, they have the property recorded on their name, and this way they can secure a visa to not only come to Brazil, but also stay for the long term, all right? We have Robert Tate. Welcome, Robert. Good to see you over here. How complicated are rental contracts in real estate? Robert, so, particularly in cities like Rio de Janeiro, it's very common for landlords to rent out to foreign citizens, right? Naturally, you have such a large number of foreign citizens in Rio de Janeiro city. Smaller cities, right? Like, I mean, not so much, but, major cities like Rio de Janeiro, super common. And the distinction you're going to see as a foreign citizen is that landlords are usually going to ask for a bigger security deposit, right? Because they're concerned, particularly if you don't have the resident card, their concern is that you're just like temporarily in the country. So their concern could be, well, I'm going to rent my property out to these foreign citizens. They are going to travel abroad. Maybe they decided not to come back to Brazil, and they cannot enter your property, right? So your property or they would get stuck with their property because you rented the property and disappeared, right? So what we see happening every now and then is that people are gonna actually ask for a full year of prepayment, right? If you are renting on a long-term basis. Of course, like an alternative is for you to just use something like Airbnb. Nowadays, in Brazil, Booking.com is way bigger than Airbnb. Many people, they come with the Airbnb in their minds, right? And Airbnb, it does work well in Brazil, but I can tell you that Booking.com is like, I don't know, it may be like twice, at least twice as big as Airbnb in Brazil. And therefore, you may find better deals and a larger variety of properties through Booking.com. All right, Robert. But I don't know where you are in your journey as a foreign citizen, in Brazil. But once you secure the resident card, right? Once you secure the resident card, then things get a little bit easier, right? Like I'm sharing here what the resident card is. Here you have a picture. The resident card resembles a Brazilian ID, a regular Brazilian ID. So Brazilians, they have an ID kind of similar to this one. It's not the same thing, right? It's just similar. But this one is the ID for foreign citizens. So once you have this thing, as you can see, it's like an official document from the Brazilian authority. And then, like landlords, they're going to say, you know what, like this guy is not just someone passing by. This guy is an actual legal resident in Brazil. And therefore, chances of you securing like regular, like the regular conditions for rental are going to increase substantially, Robert. Okay, I hope that helps. Paige says, I have no one willing to watch them in their own home, and my landlord will not allow anyone in my house but me. Yeah, tough call, Paige. Yes. So now I understand. Yeah, it looks like it's more challenging than otherwise. But I guess, like over the long term, you can find the ideal conditions to come and enjoy Brazil, Paige. Like it's just a matter of, keeping your dream and working towards it. Shilvan, I have found a house to buy. The house isn't registered, but the land is. Is that okay? Or should I spend the money registering the house with the local authority? I'm worried that I'm being scammed. Yes, I mean, scams in Brazil, they are super common, okay? Like, I mean, and we even have a couple of videos about that in Rio de Janeiro alone. In Rio de Janeiro alone, there were about 300 scams related, believe it or not, related to foreign citizens buying property in Brazil. Not surprisingly, right? Not surprisingly, because as a foreign citizen, you have some disadvantages when it comes to locals. Like, I mean, you don't know exactly, the rules. It's easier for other people to make up stuff, right? You don't have a network. So that's why we're here, right? Like, I mean, we are nowadays the main source of advisory to foreign citizens buying properties in Brazil. So these are some of our videos. You can, just come to our channel. And in this one, this particular one, that was interesting because I recorded this video. It was 1 year ago. And in this video, when I was recording, I think it was a couple of months before recording the video, a crime ring was busted by the Rio de Janeiro police, and they were able to deceive like 300 buyers. All right, so we're talking about a single ring, a crime ring in Rio de Janeiro that deceived like about 300 buyers, right? Like, so you imagine just like one crime ring, the damage, right? Like, and how much money those buyers they lost. Okay, there are other videos here. So these are the plain scams. There are frauds, right? Like which are not entirely scams. Sometimes people have some rights, but they don't have full rights, or they don't have like a proper title. So there are so many things that we see going on in Brazil that should certainly be a point of interest when buying property in Brazil. We also have our traditional guides, right? Like this one, it's actually a playlist with several videos addressing, the different aspects of buying a property in Brazil. There are, some of the traditional, games that Brazilians pay, like you buy a property from one guy but pay to another. This one is another major one, right? Like the person is going to ask you to pay under the table. So let's say if you're buying a 1 million reais property, the seller says, yes, but you're going to pay me the 1 million, but we're going to register as 700,000. And the idea here is like to defraud the government in terms of not paying the full taxes because you are under-declaring the amount. And of course, this is a crime, and we recommend you to stay away from anyone suggesting otherwise. Okay, so there are many videos that you can enjoy in our channel that are going to address that. But in any scenario, our recommendation is to always secure an attorney to review the transaction so you don't lose your shirt. Okay, in terms of the house not being registered, what we usually do, let's say if the land is properly registered and if it's urban property, all right, because if it's rural, you may need the RNM card to be able to buy. So let me go back to this point. If you are buying a urban property, you don't need a visa and you don't need the resident card. But if you're buying a rural property in many states, you're not going to be able to do so unless you have the RNM card, all right? But let's say if the house that you're buying, it's in an urban area and the house is not registered, but the land is, what we do in our transactions, like we condition the closing to the seller registering the house, because this is not your obligation, right? Like you should be buying something that is like, square. You shouldn't be buying something weird like a house with no registration, right? So what we usually do here at the firm is like this. We have a contract, and in the contract we say, listen, we're going to pay you like a down payment, the so-called sinal, as we say in Portuguese, let's say 5 or 10% of the purchase price. And then the seller is going to have like 60 to 90 days to properly record the house in the title. And then when you move it to closing, everything should be straight. Okay, but we make it as a responsibility of the seller, not you as the buyer to buy the house and go register because the seller didn't do the right thing in the first place. All right. Okay, and Paige is asking, so what can I do since the original plan is not possible? Paige, I don't think it is what you want to hear, right? But sometimes we need to make sacrifices to achieve our dreams, right? And maybe you could, consider finding a new home for, if not all your pets, maybe at least for some of your pets. And, to find a nice home, like people who are going to love them as much as you do. But I guess that's the way to go. Or if you don't want to do that, maybe you can, have a plan over time, right? As time passes, you don't bring any new pets to the gang. And then eventually you're going to have less pets, which would make your plans more feasible, right? And again, I apologize. I know how much you love your pets, but maybe that's a potential route for you. Okay, to find a new home for some of your pets at least. And then, this thing would be substantially different, because as far as I can tell, the problem is the number of pets you have. and if you are able to rehome some of your pets, like the whole planning would become considerably easier. If you allow me to suggest that, all right, Paige, I hope you don't get offended. All right, and just going back, Silvan is asking about purchasing the house. So I was mentioning, I'm not sure if all of you were here when I shared the news. Like now Brazilian real or the US dollar is buying almost 6.2 Brazilian reais, and that's an absolute record, right? In terms of currency, and not surprisingly, people are getting crazy about buying properties in Brazil. Okay, let me share over here just the current currency exchange. So as you can see over here, on top of the wall is a major news portal. Here, a dollar is buying 6.189 Brazilian reais, and this is an absolute record for the US dollar against the Brazilian currency, and it's difficult to believe that this is going to keep going, but you never know, right? Like, I mean, sometimes people ask us, like, do you think the US dollar is going to continue to get stronger? Nobody knows, right? Like, nobody knows. Like, there are so many variables out there. Like, I mean, there is a potential, global war. I mean, there are the ongoing wars, like Middle East. There is Russia and Ukraine. Like China's economy is suffering a lot. So many variables. Like, it's difficult to tell when this dollar strengthening is going to stop. But the point is, like, this is an all-time record, right? So there you go. Okay, Murmunha, sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right. One definitely should contact you to get professional advice before buying any property in Brazil. I appreciate, Murmunha, like, we've been working on behalf of foreign citizens for a long time, and we are very pleased, with the value that we can add. And I think you guys can tell if you take a look at our profiles out there, you're going to see that people are very pleased with the work. In my opinion, right, like, whenever you're buying a property, that's a very important achievement, right? Like, for most people, they don't have like 10 houses, right? Like, they have one or two, a couple, maybe 3 properties. So every time you acquire a property is a major milestone, a major achievement, and we are always alert to the fact that there are many complications that can arise from purchasing cross border. And our number one goal is that you never lose your shirt, right? Because I can tell you, very common for people to come to us after like a problem that can no longer be solved, right? Like, after your money is in someone else's pocket, there is no going back, right? Like, I mean, some people say, well, but can't I sue like this guy? First thing, like, you need to find the person, right? And let's assume you know where the person is, that you can sue the person. Unfortunately, like, the court system in Brazil is really, really slow, and it's not uncommon for a lawsuit to take more than 10 years to be concluded. And guess what? You're gonna need to fund that thing, right? Like, so imagine, like, you lose your money because you bought, like, from the wrong person or the wrong property, and then on top of that, like, on top of losing your money, you still need to pay, like, lawyer fees for 10 years without certainty that you will ever recover what you lost in the first place. So a really tough spot, and that's why like, we usually recommend it, don't be cheap when buying property abroad. Just understand it's not your native country, like, it's elsewhere. and Brazil has many upsides, but like there are downsides as well, and like a more pervasive level of fraud is going to be one of them, right? Let's not sugarcoat the reality. But Murmunha, thank you very much for the recommendation. We appreciate. Shiovan is saying, I have a CPF number. Am I able to open a bank account and get a phone SIM card? Or do I need a visa or residency for that? So for a bank account, Shiovan, most banks, they are going to ask for the resident card. Okay, that's the card I've been sharing here. This is the resident card. So most banks, they are not going to open a bank account unless you have this card over here. Okay, so some clients, when they're buying property, they are going to apply for the digital nomad visa, not because they want to stay for a full year in Brazil, but because through the digital nomad visa, you get that card, and with that card, you can open the bank account, right? There are some special types of non-resident bank accounts, but they are not super common, right? Like they're more of a specialized type of bank account. SIM card, with the CPF, you may be able to get the SIM card, so you don't need the resident card most of the time, right? But those rules, they change from provider to provider. But SIM cards in general, you can get it without a card, and you can also use, like if you have a Verizon, for instance, and you are in Brazil, you can pay $10 a day, and you can use like kind of unlimited, phone calls and internet, right? And I understand like you're not going to live in Brazil paying $10 a day, but if you are in your initial month or a couple of months, like that could be a solution until you replace your number. Okay. Look at that. Shiovan is sharing something really nice. You can bring pets to Brazil, especially dogs and cats. I'm bringing my dog. It only costed me about 200 pounds. Shiovan, that's a really nice piece of information. And I'm just going to say that, in the United States, maybe you need to do some research, because I believe the costs are higher than that. And it's also it also depends on the size of the dog, right? Like, I mean, I can tell Shiovan that this is for a small dog, right? Like, I mean, if it was a bigger dog, prices get crazy really, really fast. I remember, like, there was a client, he was considering bringing like a yellow lab from the States, and I think the final bill would be like $9,000, right? Like for a yellow lab. He would need to have like the pet sent as cargo, right? Because of the size, he cannot go in the cabin, and he wasn't a service dog. And in addition to that, like this gentleman, he was going to Ceará, which is in the northeast of the country. So after the yellow lab would arrive in São Paulo, there was a need to hire like, local transportation specializing in pets to take the dog from São Paulo to Ceará, right? Like, I mean, I think it's a 2-day or 3 days trip. And it was like an air-conditioned van, like, the van would stop for the pets to take a walk, like they would feed the dogs. So, different ball game, but that's a really nice sharing. Yeah, Shiovan, just like as I assumed, yeah, he's only 1.8 kilos. Yeah, small dog, right? That's great. All right, guys. So we're gonna, end our live stream. Again, I apologize for starting later than the scheduled time. Just like, end of year here at the firm, and we're trying to have, everything completed by, the end of the year. And our next live stream, just remember, we're not going to have a live stream on the 22nd. Okay, so no live stream this Sunday. We're not going to have a live stream on the 25th, which is going to be Christmas Day. So I'm here wishing you